So I am delighted as ever to say that joining us on the We Are West Ham podcast once again is friend of the show, friend of mine, sports journalism extraordinaire and all-round great bloke despite being a gooner. It's Dan Cutts. Cutsy, wonderful to have you back on the show again. You know that me and the We Are West Ham podcast listeners absolutely love your appearances, even though most of them are just gloating about how good Arsenal are compared to West Ham. And I expect more of the same this time around.
I know you can call it early doors. It's going to be a bit of a gloat fest again. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it. But I've enjoyed. I've been coming on for about 3 years now, and I said ever since I upturning fortunes. So I'll keep coming on until the downward spiral again. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, there seems to be a direct link, mate, between your first appearance on the podcast and Arsenal all of a sudden being good.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I don't know if it's coincidence, but I'm happy to say that it did happen. But yeah, like you say, ever since I've come on, it's been on the up, and I'm loving it, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Well, look, you're dialing in from New York. Your current pad now. What's it like being? I mean, it's I think it's 11, just about midday here. I think about 8 a.m. where you are. What's it like? Is it easy enough supporting the Gooners? I imagine there's a big old Arsenal presence in New York.
There is, mate. The Premier League's getting bigger and bigger every year out here, to be honest with you. A huge hardcore following across America. People getting up at. I mean, the guys over in LA, the Supporters Trust over there, they're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for games. And here in the pubs, packing out the pubs at 7 a.m. for the midday kickoffs on a Saturday. And throughout the day, all the 3 o'clocks are shown here, which is great. So pubs are packed, and you get Supporters Trust from all the clubs. West Ham have got a big one over here. And
yeah, cool, sure.
And it's great. It's great. They're really passionate fans. They really care about the club. Most of them haven't even been to the club, but to the ground, but you wouldn't know that the knowledge they have and the love they have for the club is great. So yeah, I'm loving it, mate. It's great. They're really nice people, and they're really passionate about the Arsenal.
Happy days. Well, look, I mean, second in the league at the moment, and normally, I think 2 points off the top. Normally, you'd have a big old smile on your face about that. I imagine that's tempered somewhat by the fact that the team you're 2 points behind at the top of the league happens to be Tottenham Hotspurs.
I don't want this to come back and bite me, but I don't think I've ever been less worried about a team winning the Premier League, to be honest with you. I mean, they're good. They're really good. Postecoglou's a great manager. He's got them playing some lovely stuff, and they look like a really good side. But it's Tottenham. You know that, Will, as a West Ham fan. I know that. They know that. Everyone knows that. They had this a few years ago. I remember I think they went unbeaten for the last 12, 13, 14 games. And just before Christmas, they were talking about the similar thing. And then I think they ended up finishing 4th or 5th or something like that in the end. I'm not too worried. I'm more worried about teams like Liverpool. I think Liverpool are the ones to look out for, to be honest with you. They're quietly going about their business really well. But yeah, it's been a great start to the season. We haven't actually played particularly well in any game, especially for a 90-minute period. We were really good against City at times and really compact, but we haven't really played well all season. So to be in the position and only have lost one game, albeit in the Champions League away at Lens, it's been a really good start, and we look good on Saturday again.
Do you? Look, we'll get on to Arsenal in a minute. Can we just sort of try and bring ourselves to imagine, just for a second, what it would be like if Tottenham were to win the league? What would you do? Because it would be the end of my football career and the end of my residency in the UK.
Well, thankfully, as we've spoken about, obviously, like you mentioned, we're mates outside of this. We've talked about how long I'll be staying in New York, and whether that would be a couple of years, a year, or 10 years. I think if that was to happen, I would give up my residency like you in the UK and move and get my green card over here and just live permanently away from the UK, because I'm not sure the half of my being from North London, half my family are Tottenham fans as well. So I'm not sure I could ever show my face at Christmas again if that happened.
Ever speak to anyone?
No.
Family.
So that's the severity of that situation. It's
yeah.
It's literally whether I go home again or not.
Yeah.
But,
so you're confident, are you, then, that they'll Spurs it up?
Yeah, they're better. They seem like a better Spurs team. Like, they're not as Spursy as they were before. They look like a really good team, but you just know that club is like 1 second away from disaster at all times.
If it's a white football shirt with the chicken sitting on the beach ball on the chest, then you know that success will elude them as always.
Sure. And it's the one thing that Arsenal and West Ham fans can both get behind, isn't it?
Always unite on.
Yeah, it really does.
I do always enjoy it. I'm sort of in an iron with to go on Wednesday. We chatted about it with Jonesy on that sort of elsewhere on this podcast, and I'll go into it with him in a bit more detail in the final thoughts as to whether I go or not. The one of the small things that's pulling me towards going is the enjoyment I always get from the unison of the 60,000 home and away fans with the stand up if you hate Tottenham chant that comes during any game of West Ham against Arsenal.
Yeah, it's like the darts at Christmas, isn't it? When everyone sings Tottenham get battered everywhere they go, and it's the one thing that unites all football fans, and it definitely unites Arsenal and West Ham fans. I know that as well.
Sport and darts fans,
yeah, for sure.
So listen, Arsenal second in the league at the moment. You mentioned there that you haven't particularly played well this season. No. Are you taking? Because I've had a few Arsenal fans strangely say that you're not playing as well as you were last year. Obviously, you come up short at the end, but an amazing campaign nonetheless, and certainly huge improvement on where you have been as a club for the past, since Arsene Wenger, basically. What are you taking confidence from the fact you're not playing well, or are you sort of worried that actually, if we do something does need to change performance-wise, because there are probably more good teams in and around that top that top place this season, top couple of places, and the performances need to improve because you might get found out sooner or later?
No, I'm not actually, because I don't think anyone's particularly played like blinding. You look at Liverpool and they I know that I said about them going about their business and they look dangerous and stuff like that, but there have been times where they've looked frail, and City, obviously, they went 3 away games on the bounce with defeats at Wolves and us and maybe one other. So the other teams around us look like they have their vulnerabilities, and I don't think I'm maybe being a bit harsh actually, because I don't think they are vulnerabilities. We have gone about our business pretty well. The Champions League is new to us as well. The Champions League campaigns is new, so dealing with that situation and those pressures at the same time. And we do look. We had to read. The thing is, our squad was looking really good, and then we lost Timber like 10 minutes into the season. Yeah, that was a worry. But Tomiyasu's been great since he's come in, and the squad does look a lot better, and I imagine we'll go on to Declan Rice and talk about him a little bit a bit later. But he's completely galvanised that midfield again, and it's not as bad as Arsenal fans are probably suggesting it is. It could be worse. You could be a West Ham fan, but but it's also, I think the stakes are so high now. We know what the type of football we can play. We saw what we did last season. It feels like we're a big club again. So the pressures are back being very high again. So and the expectation. So I think it's just the expectation of Arsenal fans has gone. It was high before, but even higher than it is now.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I sort of. Still unbeaten, I suppose, in a season. It's weird, isn't it? If it was Manchester City, people always go, well, it doesn't matter that they're playing badly at the beginning of the season because they push on. I think perhaps people are looking at your excellent season last year going, well, you started so well and then tailed off.
They know how to win, don't they, Will? That's the difference, is that they know how to get over the line after not maybe sort of slowly
They seem to
getting
get
into the
better
season.
deeper in the season, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And we don't know how to get over the line. We've not won the trophies that they've won. It's our first time in the Champions League for, what was it, 6-7 years, or however long it's been. We obviously didn't go over the line in the Premier League last season in a quite a disappointing way in the end, and we've not got that trophy, that know-how yet. So it's the unknown that we don't know. So if we're not playing well at all times, it can be a bit worrying. But as I say, I'm quietly confident about this season. I actually think we'll win a trophy this year. I think we'll win the Premier League this year. I think we'll get over the line in that competition. I do genuinely think we'll win the Premier League this year. I think we're looking pretty strong in that competition. And we'll obviously get out of our Champions League group, but you never know in that one.
No,
it's
all competitions. It's luck of the draw, isn't it?
For sure. Well, you would know that as West Ham fans better than most, wouldn't you?
Of course.
From winning your European trophy last year, you beat some big teams along the way, but you do have to have luck in those knockout competitions and ride your luck. So it's a long season, but I'm quietly confident we'll get a trophy this season. Actually,
fair enough. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with getting a trophy. We'll obviously chat about the game on Wednesday night. That's why we've got you on here. That's in the League Cup, or how seriously you're going to take that on Wednesday. We'll chat about that in a little bit. But do you got the Champions League. It sort of almost seems like it's a bolder claim this season, especially at this stage of the season, to say that you'll win the Prem this year, when arguably you're not perhaps playing quite as well, but the competition seems more like, I know I'm sort of in agreement that Tottenham won't be there come the end of the season, probably top 4, but I still don't think it just always feels with Spurs, they're only an injury to Son or Maddison away from sort of becoming a bit more of an average team again. Do you know what I mean?
Bissouma's the one for me. Yeah. Well, he's probably been arguably up there with Rice and Rodri and those guys, up there with the best midfielders in the league so far this season. I think he's key to what they do. He keeps them ticking over. I think
you mentioned City and Liverpool as well, though. Yeah, like they look like, or City less so, but Liverpool look like they've got their act together, don't they?
They really do. Yeah, they look brilliant. And they don't even look like they're properly firing on all cylinders.
Yeah,
they just
third look like gear vibes at the moment, isn't it?
It really is. They're just, like I say, they're ticking along really nicely. And they've got, that squad is brilliant, isn't it? Like, over a season, people do forget, because of what happened last year, how good that team actually is, and how the depth that they've got in attack and whatnot. I know, and they've spent a bit of money in midfield now. And obviously, the centre halves are good. The defence has been good with Alisson. So they're the ones.
Nunes is bedding in, isn't he? Szoboszlai looks decent, sort of what they needed. Salah's doing Salah things as he normally does, and it's just sort of clicking slowly into place again, isn't it?
Like you say, Nunes is slowly becoming the player that they spent 75 million on. Yeah, exactly.
Quite.
So they're the danger for me.
Well, listen, you've mentioned him already. I do think it's remiss of us not to talk about it. Now, I'm keen. I sort of know you, what sort of Arsenal fan you are. And to be fair to you, although you did make some bold claims last year, you make a very, very good point. And I talk about it often when I talk to other fans of teams. I obviously don't apply this to Tottenham fans if they're talking about winning the title this season. But you said to me, look, we're at this position in the table. What's the point of supporting a football club if you're not going to dream? So I'm going to dream of us winning the Premier League. We're doing well. We've been so rubbish for such a long time. So what's the point of being a football fan? And I totally agree. Obviously, we don't apply that to Tottenham fans. Any Tottenham fans dreaming that they might win the Premier League are ridiculous.
Delusional.
Exactly. Quite. Yeah. Now, I sort of bring up what type of Arsenal fan you are, because I think there's been a general acceptance among West Ham fans and a few other support.
I know where this conversation is going as well. Just before I start, I was going to bring this up with you a couple of days ago when you asked me to come on, because I knew this question was coming, and I know exactly what's going to happen, because there's a social media sort of hyperbole at the minute that Arsenal fans have only just realised how good Declan Rice is. And I'm going to have to stop you mid-question because I know exactly where it's going.
You're not even going to let me set you up for it.
It's utter delusion. It's utter delusion that I think, and there is some parts of social media that give off the impression that Declan Rice, like that what West Ham fans have been saying for the last, I don't know, you would know a lot more than me, but maybe 5 years that Rice has been probably up there with your best players.
3 or 4 years, definitely, yeah.
Exactly. There are some parts of social media that were ignorant to how good he was, even though he played for England.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, yeah. He's England's starting centre midfielder as well.
It wasn't like they've just Arteta's just seen this player playing. I'm going to use Barnsley as an example, like they did, like John Stones was at Barnsley and Everton picked him up out of nowhere, and he turned out to be sort of this world-class footballer in the end. It wasn't like one of those transfers. Declan Rice won a European trophy last year and has been a world-class player for a number of years. Yeah. But what I would say on the flip side of that, in the defence of Arsenal fans, because I agree with West Ham fans and their frustrations over that, it can be frustrating, especially when you develop a player like you have. It kind of takes away the sort of the joy that you guys have got from watching this kid come up through your academy and become your captain, win you a European trophy. And I know it's not fun for him leaving to go on to Arsenal because obviously we are London rivals, but he is playing in the Champions League now. He wants to play for England consistently. He wants to compete for the Premier League title. And unfortunately, those things he wouldn't have got to do at West Ham. That is just fact.
The England one, I'd push back on England, but other than that, yeah, that's fair with the Champions League and the Premier.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Maybe. Well, you say this, but that is the fact of the matter is, Will, and we both know this, is that there's a good chance that Declan Rice might be England captain after Harry Kane potentially retires after the Euros next year. We don't know whether Kane will stay on to the World Cup. He's got a better chance of doing that if he's Arsenal. For some reason, bigger clubs, Arsenal, the top 6, get preferential treatment to the teams like West Ham and your Everton when it comes to international football. That is a fact.
Yeah, apart from Jordan Henderson the other week.
Yeah. I mean, we could have
a legend.
Yeah, we could have an hour and a half conversation about
I take your point. Yeah.
But yes, he is special, and he looks like he might have been this good for West Ham. I didn't watch every West Ham game for the last 3 years, but I always knew he would be a good player. But when you watch him in this team, I didn't realise how good he was. That's what's come as a shock for Arsenal fans. I think I don't really realise how good he's winning us games. He's now having in his last. I think he's won more points from us than potentially any player this season from certain positions, like the goal against Man United, the assist for the opening goal at the weekend. He's actually having a direct effect on games now.
Yeah.
And I don't think Arsenal fans really saw that at West Ham, mostly because they probably didn't watch the West Ham games more than anything.
That is genuinely fair enough, right? Declan Rice is a player where there's lots of players I've seen over the years, but you'll have them at Arsenal as well, where you only see the class of a player if you watch him week in, week out for 90 minutes of a game. Yeah. And normally it often applies as well when you're in the stadium. Like I've had vastly different views on West Ham players to my other friends who don't go as much or just watch on telly in the past, because you're able to watch the positions they pick up, which might not get shown on the telly, or the things they do off the ball. And I've had no doubt whatsoever, and that is where it comes from. You got Arsenal fans who understandably wouldn't have watched West Ham week in, week out, because why would you if they're not your team for the last 3 years? But there is a reason, isn't there? That my only comeback to all of it has been like, what are you talking about, you weirdos? That you paid 105 million quid for him. There's a reason you paid that. Like, if it's different, right? Tottenham have got Maddison for 40 million quid. That is a better transfer than Declan Rice's. Declan Rice has been amazing, but Maddison
value
was 40
for money.
Million quid.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Yeah, but
no one's surprised. It's like, oh, James Maddison's a good player.
this is the thing that is really interesting about Rice. I think this season is not many people are speaking about that price tag because he's been so good.
No, of course,
People know, and he is. Unfortunately, we just live in a world where those transfer fees are acceptable, which is just mad in itself. But 105 million. There's all this joke going around. I think it's more from Arsenal fans to wind up West Ham fans more than anything. And it's stoked a little bit of a rivalry, the Rice thing. Even though I never really saw West Ham as rivals. I don't think West Ham really saw Arsenal as rivals in the past. But
no, I think there is an element of dislike, but not,
it's not,
not
but
as intense. Yeah,
they sort of said how he looks like a bargain now. You look at 105 million, it looks like a bargain. We can only really say that if they go on to win the Premier League and Rice has a player of the season style season, because 105 million is a ridiculous amount of money. But going off the first 15 odd games of this season, he does look like he looks like value for money. It's not a bargain. He looks like he is worth 105 million. He looks like he could be one of the best midfielders, if not in that category in the world at the minute. There's not many better than him in the Premier League. There wasn't many.
Rodri, isn't it?
There wasn't many better than him when he was at West Ham, and that's probably what the frustration from West Ham fans is that he probably didn't. West Ham probably didn't get the credit they deserve for developing him, and Declan Rice probably didn't get the credit he deserved last season. But there wasn't many better than him, and there hasn't been for a couple of years now.
Last season he wasn't as good as he was the season before, to be fair, but that's because he was developing this Frank Lampard complex where he wanted to be a box-to-box midfielder.
Well, he's doing that for us a bit now. He's scoring goals and stuff. It's weird. It's
but like not the level that Gerrard and Lampard were in their heyday, which is the sort of player he sort of convinced himself that he wanted and he could be. But there's a reason when he plays for England, he plays as the holding midfield player, while players who are actually good going forward go forward.
Well, thankfully we live in a time where we've got Jude Bellingham playing for England, and as we know, I mean, that kid is probably the best player in the world at the minute. So he doesn't need to do those things as much.
Declan Rice, right, he's just not a player who's ever looked good on Match of the Day. And like people like James Maddison, right? People know he's good because he looks good on Match of the Day because he's involved in goals. Declan Rice rarely was. So no one, unless you're watching the games of the team he plays for each and every week, all it is, Arsenal fans are just discovering the exact same West Ham fans did 4 years ago.
Exactly.
And the only way you realise how good Declan Rice is you watch him in person for 90 minutes every week. That's how you see his wizardry.
Exactly. He's not a highlights reel man, like you say.
Definitely
they're going to do a minute package on Match of the Day for. It's a great analogy.
On him intercepting key attacking of the opponents.
Exactly. With the things you don't see, and that's the interception. I've never seen a man judge a football so well in recent years. Like what he does, the break up of play, his anticipation, and another thing is, I don't know if you saw the Sevilla game at the last week, but he made this drive up the pitch where he just, the pace and power he had, he got past 3 or 4 players and got us 80 yards up the pitch. He probably did that, and I know he did because I've seen the West Ham fans put the clips together every week in, week out at West Ham, but you never saw it because, again, why would you watch West Ham?
What Arsenal fans are watching the Europa League highlights show.
Exactly. He did that for West Ham, but like Arteta would have detailed packages that Arsenal looked into and wanted to spend that money because he was doing things like that. Fans are only just realising the things that Arteta and was looking at last year when he was trying to looking at buying him, and West Ham have been watching for a number of years. And you're right, he's not a highlights man. He's just a man who's going to win you football matches through being really good at football.
Yeah, in that, you know, how long? It's basically Claude Makelele was the first player, wasn't he, before N'Golo Kante, who sort of made it clear, but were the first sort of, or no, Makelele was the first one of that, where it was like, oh, all of a sudden the holding midfielder role is a thing, and B, it's one of the most key positions on the pitch in the Premier League.
Well, we had Gilberto Silva,
Kante
didn't
did that.
we?
Yeah, of course you did. Yeah.
In the Invincibles, and they're very different because Gilberto Silva was literally a block. He made our defence look ridiculously good because I think we'd get past our block in midfield, but he was like that. But he's a lot different to Rice. Rice takes the ball forward a lot quicker than Silva did. Silva just gave it to better players.
He's very athletic, Rice, isn't he? Yeah,
he is, and a lot more athletic than I thought he was. And that's come as a surprise to me is how good he actually is. And it's great. It's great. It's as a huge England fan as well. It's to have an Englishman as one of the staples of your football club. It's exciting, and I think Arsenal fans are really excited by it.
Of course, yeah. I another one Arsenal fans also don't like is he probably still would have gone to Chelsea if they weren't such a basket case. But look, we'll leave the Declan Rice thing. I'm glad that you've got a bit more of a sensible head on and a rational head, Cutsy. I know that among your Arsenal fan peers, you are that rare breed that can sometimes have a rational view on football whilst having an Arsenal shirt on. So we'll leave the Declan Rice topic. Look, there is a game on Wednesday, mate. That's what we're talking about. The League Cup. I think the first way to go is how seriously is Mikel Artrta going to take it? Basically, because at this stage, the long and short of it is I've sort of accidentally got a ticket because I didn't realise I was signed up to the automatic cup scheme. So I've got a ticket. My dad hasn't got one, but we can get him one. After the game yesterday, we said, don't fancy it Wednesday because we were so rubbish against Everton. So I want to know from you. This podcast is as much about letting the listeners know what to expect from Arsenal, a la the opposition view, but also to help me to decide whether or not I can be bothered to go.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And again, after watching, I did actually watch your game yesterday. I was watching that for 90 minutes. Yeah. Even I wouldn't go to watch West Ham again if I was a die-hard West Ham fan because they were frankly disgraceful yesterday, I thought. They were so poor. But so this is a weird one, Arsenal, because in the last round we beat Brentford away, and Brentford played a really strong side, and we made quite a few changes. And I think an hour before kickoff when this came out, everyone just assumed we'd get beat by Brentford, who were a really good side. And it just looked like a bananas. Well, not even a bananas. It just looked like that we'd accepted that we'd lose and go on. But actually, we played really, really well at Brentford. Defended really well, and it shows the strength in depth. Actually, that Arteta's now got at Arsenal is the players that are coming off for the bench. We made quite a few changes on Saturday as well. Odegaard didn't play, Smith Rowe did, and Kivior played. And
you walloped Sheffield United 5-0, of course, if anybody's missed it. Yeah.
And who are, by the way, as good as gone as I've ever seen a football team the middle of October or whatever we're at now. So we made a few changes at the weekend, and the thing we have now is that we've actually got a really good squad. Players coming off the bench. Emil Smith Rowe couldn't get a game before the weekend, and he would get into the majority of Premier League teams. Jorginho's been in and out of the team because Partey's been injured, and he can't stay fit. There's players for every position now. Reece Nelson will play on against West Ham. Again, would get into is a really good winger. Won us quite a lot of points last season coming off the bench and had an effect on games. Would get into most teams. So it's not really a matter of how serious we'll take it, because actually I think the strength of the squad now is that he can play a mix of first team and that's slightly sort of the second team, as you will, and it still be as strong as a lot of the teams around the Premier League now.
Well, you're not convincing me to go so far, mate.
I think
if you weren't in New York, put it this way, I'd be offering you my ticket.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a tricky one, Will, because we'll put out a semi-decent side. It's how strong you'll go. Do you want to win the Carabao Cup this year?
Well, honestly, mate, me and James talk about this. We've already done our sort of final thoughts section, just behind the curtain for everyone listening. So this section obviously gets wedged in before what me and Jonesy have spoken about. And, you know, I'm of the opinion that David Moyes could have had I was out in Greece on Thursday for the Olympiacos game, and it was woeful. And it was sort of all sprung off David Moyes playing a far too weak team. Like, he should never have done that, should have gone strong. The Europa League's more of a priority than the League Cup, and then the Premier League after that. But now, because he sort of lined himself up for it by playing such a weak team at Olympiacos, it then piled more pressure on the Everton game, and then we obviously lost there. Yeah. So now it's almost like this Arsenal game, which doesn't really have to matter. He's almost got a get out of jail free card. If you go out of a cup to Arsenal, it's not embarrassing. Yeah. It's better to do that than to lose to Oxford or flipping, you know, Wimbledon or some of the teams we've lost to in recent history. So I almost think now, and he's in a position where he has to go stronger than he'd want for the Arsenal game now, because he can less afford a 4-0 humping at home to Arsenal than perhaps he could if we'd got even one good result against Olympiacos or Everton. So
do you think he cares about that pressure, Will? Because I know exactly what you mean, is that culmination now is you actually didn't start too badly in the Premier League, did you?
No.
In the league, you actually went on a little bit of a run, but now there's been a bit of a downturn in form, and again, and I agree with you, he put himself under pressure away at Olympiacos, because Olympiacos aren't that good a team. I can be totally honest with you. And
we could have beaten them.
They're not that great. There was a mad stat about that was the first time they'd beaten an English team in like 20 or something.
We lost that game rather than them winning it, if you know what I mean.
For sure. They were there for the taking, and I agree that weakened side didn't help whatsoever. And then you put your pressure on yourself against a pretty average Everton team and go and lose that in the circumstances. And now you've got Arsenal at home, and it could be 3 defeats in a row. And he's, even though and
4, we lost to Aston Villa last weekend. Yeah.
4. And I know you won a European trophy last year, but it always looks like Moyes is on the brink with West Ham fans. He's never really. There's a high amount that probably after the European success last year would have let him go out on a high, and replace
which I think is wrong, but
but that was the case, and now he's putting himself back under pressure, and those people are coming out of the woodwork again, aren't they? I know you got booed off at the weekend. If you lose on Wednesday, you probably get booed off. Yeah, you did deserve to get, but then they deserve to get booed off at the weekend. But he's putting himself back under pressure again. So maybe he will put out a strong side just to stop that. But I personally don't think it's not that he doesn't care about the outside noise. I don't think it affects him like other managers. I think he's used to those pressures, and I think he's built up
I think there's just a bit of a stubbornness there with Moisey, Cutsy, to be fair. I don't think I think the stick does affect him a bit, but I think also because a lot of it is such a load of rubbish, especially from West Ham fans. I know you can tell in some of the interviews he's desperate to say, "I'm one of the best managers you've ever had, you lot." So like, screw your heads on. And to be fair, that's what we do a lot of the time on the podcast. But I sort of think there's a bit of a new era generation of West Ham fans now, I think, and just a new era of football fan in general, I think, where there's no sort of appreciation or room for nuance in their argument or understanding about football. West Ham have been crap for most of the time I've watched them for the last 25 years. We're not that crap anymore. We're actually pretty good at stuff.
Well, this is probably a question for a longer question, and you probably do a whole podcast stream in the streets. But if he was to leave now, would his legacy be a positive one or a negative one in the grand scheme of it, based off of those factors and how you describe him, and maybe the way that
anyone who says it's negative isn't a real West Ham fan. Anyone who thinks it's a negative isn't a real football fan, or he's certainly never going to be happy, because if they're supporting West Ham and thinking David Moyes' reign is anything other than one of the greatest positives of an era or of my lifetime, then they're going to have a flipping miserable time supporting West Ham the rest of their life. And I just don't understand what football's about, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
No.
People sort of go on about it as if David Moyes is just Sam Allardyce style, Tony Pulis bloke. He's not. The football's a little bit more efficient and whatever, but it's hardly direct stuff. We've got some amazing players. Jared Bowen floating in around the England squad. Lucas Paqueta plays for Brazil. He's a shoe-in starter for Brazil.
Yeah.
Every time they play. Nayef Aguerd starter for Morocco, and they got deep into the World Cup. Or would I think he got injured, but he's a Morocco starter for a decent team. Kurt Zuma's a great player. Emerson, brilliant. We've got some wonderful players playing some wonderful and winning football for a change. And it's not bad on the eye either. Yeah, it's delusional. But anyway, mate, look, this game on Wednesday, I don't know what sort of team Moyes will put out for it. You've made your point already, saying that even if Arteta makes some changes, you're still strong. So how do you see the game playing out, sort of from a style perspective? How do you see the game playing out from both teams? And then what do you think the score are going to be?
I think it's going to be much like the Brentford game, to be honest with you. I think you'll have, obviously, I think it'd be quite mixed. We'll both go through phases of dominance. I think in every game this season, we've had most of the ball, or the majority of the ball. We've got like 65% possession stats this season on average for each game. So I imagine we're going to have quite a lot of the ball. You don't get hammered by anyone, do you? So you like you say, Zuma's a good player. You've got a good structured defence, and you're always pretty solid. So I think it's going to be quite a tight game. Looks like a 1-0 Arsenal win or a 2-1 Arsenal win for me. I don't think it's going to go heavily either direction. I think it'll be quite tight. I can't imagine too many chances, but I think we'll just get over the line. To be honest with you, I think we'll just put out a strong enough team to win it, and you might rest a few players, maybe. But like, someone, is Bowen going to start? I can't. Maybe that might.
I honestly can't call it anymore. I really can't call it. I think. I don't know. I just can't call it. I don't know whether, because of what's gone on the last few games, whether David Moyes can risk that. So, like playing a really weak team, you got proper pelters for it, rightfully so, the Olympiacos team. So I don't know. Bowen.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
We've got lots of players in that position. That's the problem. But then Fornals and Benrahma were abjectly abysmal in Greece. So they don't really deserve it. But I don't know. I think you've got to play someone else up front. I don't think you play Antonio. He needs a rest. He's for the Premier League games. Antonio gets rested, but you can't play Danny Ings up front again. That is unfathomable. Like, you can't do that. I'm not being funny. If I see Danny Ings in the team, and I'm on the way to the stadium, I will be turning around and going home. Yeah, that's for sure. So no, yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, tricky one to call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've just got it in the back of my head. We beat Man City on penalties in this stage of the League Cup a couple of seasons ago. It was a great game, and we are generally more comfortable as a team when we've got the freedom to just sit back and let the other team have the ball, which we will have on Wednesday, of course.
Looks like you tried to do that at the weekend, and that's what kind of worries me in this game, is that obviously you are better at counter-attacking. Obviously, Everton didn't really want the ball at the weekend, so you couldn't really break them down. Whereas we'll have a lot of the ball, push our fullbacks forward, and maybe you can get your wingers and fullbacks up the pitch quite quickly and hit us on the break. But I think we're a bit too clever for that now. So I'm not sure we'll get sucked into that as much as other teams would anymore. But
just quickly then, how much do you Arsenal fans and sort of Arteta and the squad care? How much do you actually care about this competition?
Not in any way, shape or form, to be honest with you, mate. But on the flip side of that, you could, and this is what I never get about football fans, and that maybe the arrogance of football fans. And I'm the worst for it, just saying it there about not caring about. You can only win like, what is it, 4 trophies, Karen? Like, and realistically, someone like, I mean, it's unlikely Arsenal are going to win the Champions League. It'll take a minor miracle to win it this year.
Yeah.
The Premier League, you've got 3 or 4 top teams fighting for it. If you're going for a trophy, realistically, the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, that's why we've been so successful in the FA Cup, and have won it the most amount of time, just because we've taken it seriously, and it's always been the third biggest trophy you could win. It's a huge trophy, so that's what shocks me about you saying that West Ham won't really. I know they might make changes and stuff like that. Is realistically, this is a great chance of you winning a trophy this season. So I don't care about it too much because of looking at the Premier League and how we've got a good chance. And I said earlier, I think we'll win it, but we'll need to have a lot of luck along the way and be in the Champions League. I wouldn't be overly fussed if we got knocked out against West Ham.
No.
The only thing that would upset me about being knocked out by West Ham is the fact that we got knocked out by West Ham and not someone else. To be honest with you, because I know you'll be texting me on the day of the game saying, "I'm glad I went now." And
yeah, I would be until we inevitably get another big team in the next round and get knocked out by them. It seems to happen to us all the time. I think after we beat Man City, we got United in the next round and lost. So we do seem to get the raw end of draws. But listen, Cuts, it's been absolutely great having you on. Dan Cuts there, the Sun's head of US sport, based in New York these days, but still a huge gooner. And brilliant having you back on the show. As always, Cutsy, really appreciate it. Looking ahead to Wednesday night's EFL Cup game against Arsenal at London Stadium. It's a sellout. I'm a little bit worried. I think there's going to be loads of gooners in the home end. So, not quite sure how that's going to go down with some of the faithful. I'm still 50-50 whether I go. I'll speak to James Jones in a minute in the final thoughts to see if he can persuade me to make the trip to London Stadium. But after going all the way to Athens for a bleak performance, I went all the way over there on Sunday. I say all the way over there, it's, a sort of 45-minute journey or whatever, but I don't know if I've really got it in me. It's going to be freezing cold on Wednesday, and I could just play golf during the day instead. We'll see. But Cuts, it's been brilliant having you on the show again. Thanks very much for joining us. Stay with us because you'll have some final thoughts from me and Jonesy coming up next. Nice one, mate. Thanks for doing that.
No, thanks for having me, mate. No worries at all. Sorry about the cut out. Hopefully it'll be it'll splice together okay. I'm sure
it'll be fine. Yeah.
Sure.
Are you back over at Christmas or anything?
I'm back for a month, mate, actually, over a month. I fly home on the 30th of November.
Oh, beautiful.
And, not flying back till January 4th. So
amazing. Oh, we'll get a shandy.
Oh, mate, there'll be a few. Don't worry about that.
Brilliant.
I'll be
You're going to be in the office, like working for a month?
I'll be for about 2.5 weeks. First 2.5 weeks, I'll be in the office. So, mate, there'll be plenty of occasions and the Christmas party as well, obviously, among other things.
Has the email gone round for that yet? I don't know if there's a date.
I haven't seen it. It's usually about mid-November, something like that. So, we'll see. But,
anyway, mate, it'd be good to see you.
No worries, mate. Yeah, it'd be great to see you. And give me a shout if you need anything, bud.
Yeah, top man. Thanks for that today.
Cheers, mate. Speak later. Bye-bye.
Speak to you later. Bye-bye.